We had comebacks left and right, a wide receiver matchup for the ages, a disaster class for one player and team, and more coming right up on Sportchaser. Week 5 in the NFL had absolutely no shortage of offensive firepower all week long, and that started with the first game of the week, Thursday Night Football, between the Niners and the Rams. The Rams, one of the hottest teams in the league, just coming off a great win against the Indianapolis Colts, really had all the expectations going into this one to beat the San Francisco 49ers, who are injury-riddled left and right, both on offense and defense. They're starting their backup quarterback, Mac Jones. Their top 3 receivers are all hurt. Their tight end is hurt. Nick Bosa is hurt. Their defense has injuries left and right as well. Their offensive line, everything about the San Francisco 49ers screamed injuries, injuries, injuries. Yet somehow, some way, they were able to stun the Los Angeles Rams and defeat them on Thursday Night Football in a primetime matchup. How were they able to do that? Well, Mac Jones, he came alive. He had 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and was able to get the win for the Niners in overtime. My, oh my, Mac Jones, that was impressive. This one was an offensive masterclass from both sides. As the Rams, on their own, Matthew Stafford had 389 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Both these quarterbacks looked flawless. Everyone in the sports market picked the Rams. Everyone who's into sports betting picked the Rams. Yet somehow, some way, the Niners were able to win this game in overtime. The 49ers in the first half absolutely destroyed the Rams. And in the second half, they took an early 20-7 lead in the middle of the third quarter. The Rams were able to storm all the way back. 2 field goals then made it a tie game, sending it to overtime. And in overtime, it was the 49ers who were able to prevail, get a game-winning field goal, and win this one. All thanks to Mac Jones and company. Mac Jones had a moment where it looked like he was hurt and he was going to be out for a while. He was grabbing at his leg. Maybe he worsened his calf strain. Maybe it was an Achilles pop. People were worried. He was grabbing at that calf, yet he was able to come back into the game and lead the 49ers to victory. This was a very impressive win for the San Francisco 49ers, and for the Rams, wow, this is not what I expected. I thought that the Rams were going to be one of the best teams in the NFC, let alone the NFC West, and now LA, we have some questions. Can your defense hold up? Because right now, letting 300-plus yards to Mac Jones and the injury-riddled 49ers, I know Sean McVay-led teams have had struggles against the Niners in the past, but this was not one of those weeks that I expected that to happen. And talk about something that I didn't expect to happen. Can we take a look at this Broncos comeback against the Eagles? Oh, that was so fun to watch. I, as a Commanders fan, was so happy to watch the Broncos come back against the Eagles as the Eagles took their first loss since the regular season last year where they lost to the Commanders. The Eagles no longer undefeated. They are 4-1 on the year. And the Broncos, they look good. Bo Nix looked good. The first 3 quarters were rough. They were rough. It was 17-3 Philly going into the fourth. Yet the Broncos scored 18 unanswered points, taking a 21-17 victory. Bo Nix looked all right. He had another solid day. Nothing crazy, but a Bo Nix-esque game. His number 1 wide receiver, Courtland Sutton, was there when he needed him. And J.K. Dobbins looked good on the ground as well. And on the flip side, the Eagles, who all season long have been getting criticism for their lack of passing and only running the ball. Yet in this one, they completely flipped that switch as they only rushed the ball 11 times, and Jalen Hurts threw it 38 times. We've been hearing things from A.J. Brown saying that he was disappointed and that he wanted more, but he was going to be okay with his role because whatever happens, happens. That's the kind of person that A.J. Brown is. However, he's expressed a little bit of disappointment so far this season as he hasn't been getting the ball, but it's because the Eagles haven't been passing it. Well, now they passed it 38 times, and Devonta Smith was the go-to guy, not A.J. Brown. And that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye out for because if the Eagles are passing the ball a lot and A.J. Brown's not getting the ball, well, he requests a trade. That's something that's going to be interesting to keep your eye on. But Devonta Smith looked good. Jalen Hurts did not turn the ball over, but they also didn't rush the ball. Saquon Barkley didn't really get involved except for his 1 long touchdown run, which was a quite impressive run. But they didn't run the ball when they were winning, which was a weird circumstance because we're used to seeing this Eagles team run down teams' throats, yet they didn't do that, and it would have fit the game script. So Philadelphia, I'm not really sure what you were going for there, But thanks. That was entertaining. And our last game of the week, before we get into it, because this one was, oh my goodness, so entertaining. I want to talk about Drake May, because Drake May, wow, he might be legit. Patriots fans, keep your eyes open, because I have some of my friends who are Patriots fans were telling me this season's a wash. You know, nothing good's going to come of this. And now they're 3-2. They just beat the Bills on Sunday Night Football in Buffalo. Drake May had a phenomenal pass to Stephon Diggs in his revenge game against Buffalo in Buffalo, which he, of course, said that he took personally. And it was a great game to watch because Drake May made some phenomenal plays down the stretch, some Josh Allen-type-esque plays that were so surprising that I didn't expect to see from Drake May. I expected it to see from the other side of the ball. I expected it to see from Josh Allen. And the Patriots were able to walk away with a victory in Buffalo. That was an impressive win from Drake May. But the third and final game of the week was the Bucs versus the Seahawks. The Bucs, who are dealing with injuries. Bucky Irving was out. Mike Evans is out. But Chris Godwin's back. And the rookie, Emeka Egbuka. This is a name you're going to hear for a long, long time, because he had a performance that we will remember for a long time. And not just because of his performance, but because of what happened on the other side of the ball. The Seahawks, led by Sam Darnold, who had a phenomenal game up until the end. But JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Emeka Egbuka gave us a phenomenal wide receiver head-to-head matchup that we hadn't seen in a long time. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs looked phenomenal on offense. Baker threw 379 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rachaad White, as Bucky Irving's replacement, had 14 carries for 41 yards. Nothing crazy, but 2 touchdowns. That's pretty solid. And then the man of the hour, Emeka Egbuka. The rookie from Ohio State, 7 receptions, 163 yards, and a touchdown. He had a phenomenal performance in this one. And on the other side of the ball, it was Sam Darnold, 341 yards, 4 touchdowns, with an interception that came at the end of the game. That was a crucial interception that honestly cost the Seahawks this game. But he looked phenomenal against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this one. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, as per usual, split the carries. The two combined had 122 yards. Zach Charbonnet got the touchdown. Kenneth Walker had 86 of those 122 yards. The two of them together are a great 1A, 1B tandem in the backfield. But the real big note here, Jackson Smith and Jigba. 8 receptions, 132 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. He had a long bomb, 53-yard reception. He looked phenomenal in this game. It was so amazing to watch both sides of the game, because whenever the Bucs were on the field, you just knew Emeka Egbuka was going to do something crazy. And then Seattle would get the ball, and you just knew Jackson Smith and Jigba was going to make a crazy catch. The two of them went back and forth all game long. And even on Seattle, A.J. Barner, 7 receptions, 53 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the day. This was a phenomenal, high-scoring offensive masterclass. 38-35, Tampa walked out of here with another game-winning field goal with little time left in the fourth quarter to win this game. And as usual, what are we saying? We're saying that Baker Mayfield led another game-winning drive late in the fourth quarter. I think that's the story of the season. Baker Mayfield, I said it in my episode 2 weeks ago, but he is absolutely in this MVP conversation, and Sam Darnold had a phenomenal game. The Seahawks have been one of those sneaky teams. Their defense all season long has been great, and I know I'm talking really highly about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense in this one, and yes, I am, because they put up a masterclass, but the Seattle Seahawks defense has been phenomenal so far this season, and their offense, we just saw, can get out there and get active. The Seahawks are a real force in the NFC West, and we'll see how far they can go with Sam Darnold at quarterback, because this is an exciting team to watch. And as we move on from my biggest games of the week into my biggest shocks of the week, there are 2 big shocks of this week, one positive, one negative. And I think I want to start with this positive one first, because absolutely nobody saw this coming. It was in the Carolina Panthers versus Miami Dolphins game. Oh, it was probably Devon Achane. Oh, it's probably Jalen Waddle. It was probably Darren Waller. No, it was actually on the other side of the ball. Oh, Chuba Hubbard. Well, Chuba Hubbard was out. Who was it? Rico Dowdle. Yes, Rico Dowdle, the former Dallas Cowboy who got signed to the Carolina Panthers this offseason, had one of the greatest running back games we have seen in a long time. And I'm saying that mostly because it was an absolute shock and nobody expected it. But I'm also saying it because the man put up 234 yards from scrimmage. Rico Dowdle, 234 yards from scrimmage. Yeah, you heard that right. He was running like his life depended on it. And maybe it did, because he might have just sold himself as a potential weapon in this offense, even when Chuba Hubbard comes back. Chuba Hubbard has been phenomenal all the way dating back to last season. Yet in his injury, Rico Dowdle was the man who stepped up big time. This was not just a backup had a good performance. This was a backup had a legendary performance. In a couple years, we will look back on this day as the Rico Dowdle game, and this will be elite ball knowledge for you kids in the future. So if you remember this and pull it out in 5 years, someone will look at you and be like, that kid knows ball. That kid knows ball. Because Rico Dowdle was able to literally carry the Carolina Panthers on his back to get their second win of the season. That phenomenal performance is absolutely why he is one of my big shocks of the week. But as we go from a super exciting topic into a absolute disaster class from the Arizona Cardinals as my other shock of the week, I'm going to flip because that was so exciting to watch and this was so pathetic. This actually hurt my brain. There were so many times when I questioned whether or not this game was football or a theater skit. Some of the things that we saw in this one were absolutely pathetic. We saw a play where the Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward, throws a pick to the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals catches it, falls to the ground, stands back up, loses the ball standing up. Meanwhile, he was not touched. There was no defenders within reach. He dropped the ball. And what happens? Obviously, the Cardinals are going to jump on the ball. But no, they kick it into the end zone. And who lands on it? Tyler Lockett of the Tennessee Titans lands on it, scores a touchdown. Oh my goodness. What is happening here? And that wasn't even the craziest part of this game. Maybe it was, but that's for you to decide. But the craziest part of this one was the fact that we all expected, with James Conner out and now Trey Benson out, that Emeka DeMercado was going to be the guy to step up. He had gotten work in the backfield so far this season, and he was the backup to Trey Benson last week. And now with Trey Benson out, we all expected Emeka DeMercado to be the guy to step up. But no, it was Michael Carter. Okay, that's fine. The Arizona Cardinals decided to go in another direction. And if you're Emeka DeMercado, what I would be thinking would be, okay, if I get my chance in this game, I need to show up and show out to prove that I should be the guy. Because as a running back in this league, it is pretty cutthroat, and you need to make your mark. He made his mark, and not in the way that he would have wanted, and not in the way that the Cardinals would have wanted. He finally got a couple touches, and on one of those touches, he was able to run it for 71 yards all the way to the house. Except, wait. He slowed down. L'Jarius Sneed was about to force a fumble, except he didn't have to, because Emeka DeMercado dropped the football right before the end zone. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. I know this happened to Adonai Mitchell last week. Last week, it was a little bit different because he accidentally started fumbling the ball. Emeka DeMercado slowed down within 10 yards to the end zone. He thought that nobody was near him. He slowed down, and what happened? He dropped the ball. He dropped the ball right before the end zone on what would have been essentially a game-clinching touchdown. The Cardinals were up at that point 21-6. Had they scored that touchdown going up 28-6, I don't think that the Titans would have been able to come back and win this game. But that is exactly what they did because he dropped the ball. Absolutely pathetic. He should have been cut on the spot as a running back who is trying to make your mark on the league, on this team, and as a human being, as a player, you cannot do something this silly. You need to be as perfect as you possibly can be. You cannot make little mistakes like this because this is not a little mistake. This is a thinking error. This is a critical error that cost your team the game and maybe cost you a chance to ever play for the Arizona Cardinals consistently. You lost your chance. I cut him from my fantasy team. I picked him up in my fantasy league. I was absolutely disappointed when it was Michael Carter who was the one who was taking all the carries, scoring the touchdowns, and even Bam Knight was scoring the touchdowns and not Emeka DeMercado. I was disappointed, but you know what? Life goes on, and that's what happens sometimes. I was fine with the fact that I made a poor start decision with Amari DeMercado. What I was not okay with was watching him run 71 yards into the end zone, except without the football, on his own accord. Absolutely pathetic. I did what I think the Arizona Cardinals should do and cut him. He should have been sent to the locker room mid-game. He should have been cut, and his jersey should no longer say Arizona Cardinals on the front. He needs to find something within himself to make sure that this never happens again, because he's a decent running back that deserves another chance in this league. However, if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, I am not giving it to him. That is absolutely, you crossed the line, and there needs to be punishments for your actions. And that is absolutely what I would do if I were the Arizona Cardinals. I would cut him. He needs to make sure that he will never do that again. And hopefully for him, he can find a roster spot. He's a decent running back. He may be able to become another backup at some other place in this league. But if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, you cross the line that cannot be crossed, you're done. Because you have in Arizona other running backs who can perform. You have Bam Knight. You have Michael Carter. And that's on top of the injured Trey Benson and the injured James Conner. You don't need a fifth running back, and you don't need a fifth running back who's going to drop the ball in front of the end zone. The Tennessee Titans were then able to come all the way back, win this game 22-21 against the Arizona Cardinals. And this leads me into what did we learn this week? And much more lighter, relax. Let's settle down a little bit, because things got a little heated, but let's settle down a little bit. What did we learn this week? Well, did we learn anything from Texans-Ravens? Well, C.J. Stroud looked phenomenal, but I don't know whether or not to credit C.J. Stroud for that or blame the Ravens defense for that, and I think it's a good mix of both. I think what we're seeing from the Baltimore Ravens is something unlike we've ever seen from Baltimore. I talked about it last week, but it's the same thing again this week. They do not look like a John Harbaugh-led team. John Harbaugh-led teams, despite injuries, have always pushed, and battled left and right to make sure that regardless of who's on the field, they will be in a competitive game. We've seen it before, but we're not seeing it again. And on the flip side, the Texans, they now have a little bit of a win streak going on. C.J. Stroud looked phenomenal against this Ravens team, and I'm not sure whether or not it's jumping to conclusions to say that C.J. Stroud was the reason why, or the Baltimore Ravens defense. So that's something that we're still going to have to look forward to going into next week. And another thing that we learned is that all season long, we are going to be talking about two names in the Offensive Player of the Year conversation: Puka Nacua and Jonathan Taylor. The two of these guys are phenomenal. Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford have a 2021 Cooper Kupp-esque connection. I said it every week before this, and I'm going to keep saying it because it is so true. Puka Nacua is absolutely a top 3 receiver in this league, and he is playing like it because he is able to do everything out there. And despite the fact that the Rams lost this game, Puka looked phenomenal. This was his first game of the season with under 100 yards, and he still put up 10 receptions, over 80 yards, and a touchdown. Puka Nacua. Jonathan Taylor, wow, is he good. He's already had plenty of performances where he's gotten over 100 yards. In this one, he had 66 on the ground. He had 20 in the air. That means he had 86 yards. And on top of that, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. Again, this isn't even the first time he's done that this season. Jonathan Taylor, as of right now, is the best running back in football, or at least he's playing like it. And the two of these guys, Jonathan Taylor and Puka Nacua, will battle it out all season long. We will be hearing their names, and it will come down to the final week to determine who is going to be the Offensive Player of the Year. Maybe even in the MVP conversation. I wouldn't be surprised. But for sure, Offensive Player of the Year is going to one of these two names as long as both of them stay healthy. And the last thing that we learned this week is the Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels are a legit team. They started off slow, and that's okay. Cliff Kingsbury was getting back into the groove. They started out 3 and out. Jaden Daniels getting back into the groove. From midway through the second quarter and on, it was all Washington. The Chargers were up 10-0 early in the first half, and after that, Washington scored 27 unanswered, winning this one 27-10. Washington's defense was able to stomp Justin Herbert and the LA Chargers, and the Washington Commanders were just able to run away with this one. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had 111 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. Jaden Daniels, 231 yards and a touchdown. He also added 39 more on the ground. And that Deebo Samuel connection is there. With no Terry McLaurin, the Washington Commanders offense had no shortage of firepower as Deebo Samuel stepped up big time. 8 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Luke McCaffrey had one of the greatest catches that we've seen so far this season on his only reception on the game. And on the flip side, Justin Herbert was the leading rusher for the LA Chargers. Marion Hampton went down. We don't know what his injury status is. Stay tuned for the episode later this week where I will talk about that. But the Chargers struggled offensively, and that was thanks to the Dan Quinn-led defense by the Washington Commanders. Dorrance Armstrong was able to add a couple sacks on the day. Bobby Wagner, Mike Sainristil, they both looked phenomenal in this one. Von Miller turned back the clock a little bit too. And this was a great game for Washington Commander fans like myself. So what we learned is that the Washington Commanders, they might be legit. And the LA Chargers, they might have some things to work on.